Hello, Poison Tea Party guests. If you're joining us tonight, it probably means you're in the mood for a little extra poison. And you're in luck, because so am I. So take a seat at the table if you're brave enough. My name is Janet, and I'm about to tell you a story that will bring all of your nightmares to life. In a land far, far away, just south of the city of Mexico City, Mexico, is a chinampa of the Laguna de Tequila, located in the channels of Xochimilco. Essentially, this is a group of really tiny islands surrounded by swampy, plant-infested canals. Now, I say tiny, and I hope you can envision it. I'm talking about islands and canals so small that you could stand on the banks of the opposite adjacent island and easily carry on a conversation with someone else. These islands are separated only by a skinny stream of marsh in between, and the actual land portions themselves are incredibly small, overgrown, and largely uninhabitable. All except one. If you find someone brave enough to take you by raft, after about an hour and a half, you will eventually come upon a sight you may not believe with your own eyes. There, a million miles away from any sign of humanity, is an island full of disintegrating dolls. The sight of the island alone, strung with hundreds of weathered, rotting dolls in the middle of nowhere, is terrifying enough, but the legend behind it is even more disturbing. And listen, there are many variations to how this story is actually told, so if you do your own research, which we always encourage here at the Poison Tea Party, you'll find different versions. But as far as I can tell, this account is the gist of it. Many years ago, a man by the name of Don Julian Santana Barrera was said to have fallen deeply in love with a beautiful woman. Ah, love. He asked her to marry him, and she said yes, but before they could ever walk down the aisle, Barrera discovered that the love of his life had been untrue to him. Don Julian confronted his fiancée, and she confessed that she had indeed fallen for another man. Heartbroken, Don Julian packed up all his belongings and ran far away to the Chinampas to try to forget about his heartache. He finally settled on one of the tiny islands. He thought it would be the perfect place to live alone and start a new life, forgetting about the betrayal. But on the first night on the island, something strange happened. As Barrera laid down to go to sleep that night, he began to hear eerie noises in the distance. At first it began quietly, almost at the pitch of a whisper, but the commotion soon grew into ear-piercing bellows that could only be described as someone in deep emotional pain. Don Julian knew he was miles away from anyone out there on the island, and superstition runs deep in the culture of Mexico. Convinced that he was hearing the cries of an evil spirit trying to draw him out of his bed, he spent the night cowering under the stars. The next morning, Barrera awoke to an incredible tragedy. There, floating on the banks of his newly settled island, was the body of a young girl. Don Julian was instantly riddled with guilt and despair. He was so certain that the cries that he'd heard the night before were almost otherworldly and not human at all. If only he had gone to check instead of cowering in bed, he could have saved the little girl. Don Julian was absolutely devastated by the discovery of the girl, as anyone would be. The next morning after, as Don Julian walked to the banks of the island, he spotted something small in the water floating among the weeds. He waded through the swamp to recover a doll. Barrera was overcome with emotion. Finding an object like this, way out here in the middle of nowhere, after what happened the day before, could only mean one thing. The doll he had just found had to have belonged to the little girl. Don Julian hung the doll in a tree on the island in memory of her, as a talisman to ward off evil spirits. The next day, another doll appeared along the banks of the island, and Don Julian hung it up, just as he had the first. And then another appeared, and another, and soon Barrera felt like he was dealing with something bigger than he had ever anticipated. He felt because he didn't save the little girl from drowning there, her spirit was haunting the island, and the only way to make up for his responsibility, and make it up to her, was to help keep her spirit happy by offering her new dolls. After that, it was common to find Barrera on the mainland, scouring through the trash and trading produce from his own garden in exchange for more dolls to display for the girl. Don Julian built a couple of shelters on the island. One he dedicated as a shrine to the girl, complete with a doll that he had come across that he deemed to be his favorite, and he named her Agustina Bonita. In 2001, Barrera's nephew came to the island for a visit and to help him with some things he needed done. He was 80 years old by this time. The nephew reports that they were fishing in the canal, and his uncle had been singing passionately that day, and talking of mermaids in the water that were calling to him. The nephew left briefly, but when he returned, he found Don Julian's lifeless body floating face down in the canal along the bank of the island, in the exact same spot where the girl was found decades earlier. After Barrera's death, his family made the decision to open the unusual island to the public as a tourist attraction. From that time on, many strange occurrences are said to have happened there. It's rumored that the dolls seem to come to life, moving their legs and arms and blinking their eyes. Some even claim that if you're quiet enough, you can hear the dolls whispering to each other behind your back. The altar created by Don Julian to pay respects to the little girl is overflowing with offerings of money, candy, and various trinkets, but it pales in comparison to the unimaginable sight of the hundreds of hanging and displayed dolls that litter the entire island. Covered in moss, spider webs, and dirt, these dolls are the ultimate definition of creepy. The island has been featured on an array of television shows, from Ghost Hunters to Expedition X, with many leaving the island determining that it is in fact haunted. To this day, there has never been any evidence of the existence of the little girl who supposedly drowned on the banks of the Island of the Dolls, but something possessed Don Julian to build this massive shrine of dolls in the middle of nowhere. Whether that something was an incredible mountain of guilt for not saving her from drowning, or an unfortunate case of insanity, we'll never know. Today, the Island of the Dolls is no longer open to the public, but that doesn't stop nosy tourists from trying to get a glimpse of the place. And if you think you're going to find an easy ride to the island, think again. Due to the crazy amount of superstition surrounding the legend of Don Julian, it is incredibly difficult to find anyone willing to take you to the island. And with the Island of the Dolls closing down years ago, the canals have become completely overgrown and almost impossible to navigate, ensuring this eerie island will shortly become another true haunted legend lost to time. That's going to do it for this episode of Extra Poison tonight. Check us out on all the things. Our website is thepoisonteaparty.com. Jump on there and check out the new merch. We've got coffee mugs, t-shirts, and brand new hoodies that you are really going to need for the upcoming fall season. Don't forget to invite all your friends to the Poison Tea Party podcast. We always love to grow and invite new people to sit at our table and to join in on all of the creepy adventures. Until next time, my lovelies, may your supper be slappin', scales be cappin', and may your poisons be extra. Bye.